You're on the road beyond. I'm Todd Duplantis. Welcome to all of you joining us on Facebook Live and YouTube. Tonight, we have got a lot to cover. A historic hearing took place about UFOs, but don't think that aliens were considered. We'll have more on that later. And we'll also catch up with Lon Strickler on the latest about the legend of Bigfoot and his blog, phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon, good to have you with us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We look forward to talking with you soon. So stick around. We'll be with you shortly. Yeah. And of course, our producer and co-host, Scotty Berrett, joins us live now. Scotty, how's it going tonight?
I'm doing great, Todd. I'm doing great. What a week.
It has been a crazy couple of weeks. Now, here's a look at some of the current headlines. We, of course, would be remiss if we didn't discuss the latest on something everybody's talking about it, inflation in the cost of everything. And there's a food shortage afoot. Now, of course, we're celebrating the $4 a gallon plus price of gas in every damn state. This is the first time it's happened. And the same day, get this, the same day that fuel reached an all-time high, the Department of the Interior announced that it will not hold sales of oil and gas leases off the coasts of Alaska and, of course, the Gulf of Mexico. Thanks a lot. Consumer price index is now 8.5%. That's an all-time high. Oh, by the way, they're calling it now not just inflation, but stagflation. Look that up, by the way. And remember this past winter when we were warned about a food shortage here in the U.S.? Well, now you can't find baby formula. Yeah, they're flying it in from outside the country. Fertilizer, which was heavily produced in Russia, is now scarce. What does that mean for the farming community? And there also are reports of numerous fires at food processing plants going on around the country. What is going on here? Experts are telling you, they're quick to counter by saying there's nothing to look at here. And Scotty, I don't know about you, but whenever the government or someone, watchdog agency, comes out and says there's nothing to look at here, there's something to look at there.
Definitely, there's something to look at. The major oil companies have been criticized for using tremendous profits from this war crisis to buy back stock and not increase production as much as they could with added revenue. The global food shortage is especially concerning because Russia and Ukraine are embroiled in war, and harvest will be slashed. And the production of fertilizer, of course, will be cut. On top of all of this, okay, let's go to another thing. On top of all of this, we need to worry about, well, take a look at this. Yes, a space rock dubbed 7335 1989 JA is headed towards Earth. It will arrive closest to our planet May 27th. It is 5 times the size of the Empire State Building. As asteroid flies past Earth, it will be traveling at a staggering 47,200 miles per hour. It's around 20 times faster than a rifle bullet.
Wow.
About 1/5 as fast as a bolt of lightning. Now, it will miss us by 2.5 million miles, but that is close as far as astronomical terms. That is close.
Well, the good thing about it is we don't have too long to wait for it to get around us. So it's either going to hit us or it's going to not. And the better chances are it's not. So we'll have to watch that, but we'll keep you updated next time on the show if we're all here. Beyond that, Scotty, there was a historic event that took place on Capitol Hill. Take a look at this.
We have our questions. We want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there. We get the questions not just from you, we get it from family members. And we get them night and day, not just in committee hearings. So finding what's out there is important, but first and foremost, it's important for us to do that so that we can ensure that our people, our personnel, our aviators, our bases and installations are safe. And then that curiosity factor is something else that we just want to know because that's the human race. It's just, that insatiable desire to know.
And of course, it was refreshing to see both sides of the aisle finally come together to work productively on something at least. Last week, for the first time in more than 50 years, Congress held a hearing on UFOs, or as they're now termed, UAPs. Scotty, do you remember the last time who presided over this hearing, similar hearing in 1966?
That was back in the days of Gerald Ford. And
Yes.
And the reports were met with tremendous skepticism.
Well, supposedly that's all changed. And here's some quick takeaways. There have been more than 400 UAP reports since the early 2000s. No collisions have been reported, but there have been 11 near misses documented. The Department of Defense has seen an increase of UAP activity in the vicinity of military-controlled training areas and airspaces. And what's this all mean? Well, we're joined now by Derrel Sims, the alien hunter. Derrel, welcome back to the show. During last week's meeting, they showed us two videos. Okay. One was proven to be a drone with flash of night vision goggles. The other flashed by so quickly, you couldn't really see anything until they were asked to go back and slow it down. Then it showed a very tiny spherical object. My question is, we got a lot of technology out there where we get live pictures from Mars on a daily basis. Don't they have better videos?
They do have better video. And the fact is, I spent 2 years in the Central Intelligence Agency, and I can assure you that we have extremely good look. They can literally, with the DSP satellite, read your watch from 2,300 miles.
Absolutely. And they're going to pick the low-hanging fruit of videos that you either can't distinguish or discern, or one that they write off as a drone. So obviously better videos out there. Why aren't they showing them to us?
Well, now that's, look, as I spent part of my life in the Central Intelligence Agency. You guys paid us to lie to you. That's what we do. How did we do?
So far, so good. Scotty, what do you think?
These objects, one of five things: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or other industry development programs, foreign adversary systems, or other. And we're talking about other. The
remarkable thing is that the fact is that several of those things are true about some of these events. But the fact is, we've literally got 3 and 4 of these events happening on each West and East Coast daily. Now that's admitted by the Air Force and others. And the point is that if that's true, how many days has this been happening? How long has it been going on?
I think one of the important points was that they've gotten 400 sightings since they eliminated or they created the protocol for actually reporting them, as opposed to before this, they only had 140. So obviously something is out there.
Well, the real big question for me about all of this is simply one big thing that they've never ever asked. If you saw a bus driving down the street with its windows all blacked out, you would say, I wonder who's driving that bus. There's something in your atmosphere flying by at enormous speeds and stopping, doing all kinds of bizarre things. Who's driving the bus?
Yeah.
Derrel, one thing I found interesting watching the hearings is one of the DOD officials said they mentioned Roswell, and it seemed remarkable to me that they actually mentioned Roswell. And it was in a very passing conversation, a reference to Roswell. Are they signaling here that Roswell was more than just some explained incident that they whitewashed years ago?
Roswell was one of the first big ones that we lied about, and we lied about in several different ways. But the fact is that there's more evidence for Roswell being real. I have evidence myself, even some recorded testimony from people who were literally at the event. And I've never made it public, but I can tell you for sure that Roswell was real. But Roswell creates huge problems for the intelligence community. The reason is that we'd have to answer a lot of questions if we said, yes, it was real. That meant that we were lying to you for 70 years.
All right.
Scotty, you had I know one of the committee members had an interesting report that he posed on the committee or on the those testifying.
And one of the things that we don't know how much they're hiding. We don't know how much they're not telling us. They feed this out in drips and drabs, but they don't tell us the full truth.
One of the committee members, Derrel, asked about a report of UAPs knocking missile silos and defense systems offline. And amazingly, those testifying, the two officials were like, "Oh, we don't know anything about this."
They don't have Google. They don't have Google.
You know, I mean, it's everywhere. Yet they're saying they don't know anything about it. And these are the people that are on the UAP task force or leading it.
The Maelstrom Air Force Base event happened. It was widely reported all over the internet and everywhere else. But the Russians also had the same problem. A field marshal literally came on TV, American TV, and said they had the same exact events happening to them, and they had no explanation for how it happened, how it could. We can't answer those questions as an intelligence community because we've got egg all over our face. We've lied to you all these years. How are we going to clean that up even if we admit the truth today?
Yeah. And they're saying that the stigma has been taken away of filing these reports. Okay, the stigma's gone, but the disinformation is not going. Do you see anything changing in the near future?
I do not see anything changing. There is a simple metaphor I like to use. It's called the map is not the territory. What that simply means is if the map is not the territory, and it obviously isn't. If you look at a map, you can see that it's not, let's say, Texas, if that's what the map is. But if you get a map and you follow it and you can't get to your destination, then you got a wrong map. Somebody gave you the wrong map. What I think you're hitting on here very beautifully is somebody's giving us the wrong map.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, for years we heard that, well, they're not going to say the truth about aliens because that's going to make mankind question religion and their origin. But reality is, I think the bigger problem here is what they don't want to tell us is we don't know how to protect you from these things. And there's a thing we can do about it if they decide to force their will upon us. Is that the biggest problem? Because it seems to me that would cause pandemonium.
It is a huge problem. And I have some information about some of the back engineering that has been going on for some time, and some of the metals that have been involved. And I can assure you that we still don't even know a lot about that. Some of you can park a car and say take a car back to in the 1776, park a car. Leave the keys in it. Eventually, somebody will figure out how to turn the car on and figure that out. They're never going to know how to drive it very well. When they do, they're going to wreck it a bunch of times. And I think that's what we've done. That's our back-end engineering. The problem is these craft, in my opinion, are interactive with the driver, not you, but the guy who's driving it. He was made, hatched, cloned, and manufactured for the purpose of operating that particular vehicle. That's why you don't find a gear shift in there, a steering wheel, etc. There isn't one.
Derrel Sims, the Alien Hunter. You can check him out at his website. Derrel, where can they find you on the web?
You can find me at thealienhunter.com, and I answer all my questions that anybody wants to give us, and it's free. We're happy to help anybody with any area of it that they want to discuss.
Derrel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being here. We are going to check in with our next guest, and we're going to kind of tie this into the UFO discussion because Lon Strickler's joined us now. He's a paranormal researcher with a fascinating blog called phantomsandmonsters.com. Lon, thank you for being on the show. Scotty, I know you are very excited about this because there's a different theory. A lot of people think Bigfoot may be flesh and blood. Could he be
we're so
dimensional?
We're so glad you're joining us tonight, Lon, because you take Bigfoot is a rather unique with the Bigfoot paradox, and what you're saying Well, Lon, you tell us, what is it you're saying about Bigfoot that is totally unbelievable?
Well, there's a theory that Bigfoot, if not in all cases, but in some cases, is a supernatural being able to move within different dimensions, interdimensional. Of course, there are people that believe that it is totally indigenous being and is all flesh and blood. Now, if it is supernatural, I believe there's a possibility it may also be flesh and blood as well. So, it's interesting because I do believe, and I had my own encounter in 1981, I do believe that there are indigenous beings. I mean, that right. People call Bigfoot. I think there's some family groups, pods of these beings, Pacific Northwest, parts of Florida, around the Gulf Coast and so on. But I think for the most part, what people do see, and it's usually just single beings, is possibly an entity that moves within our dimension and where they normally reside. And, of course, we have no proof of that. But then again, if you're talking about an indigenous being, we still haven't found a body. We haven't found really any physical evidence per se. It's all theory at this point.
And there's been reports of Bigfoot sightings near UFO sightings and being tied into other paranormal realms besides just, a big, hairy, elusive ape that's wandering the forests. There seems to be a lot more to this. Do you agree? And have you found the research where Bigfoot has been tied into UFO sightings?
Yeah. This is a theory that people like Stan Gordon have espoused for many years. There was a report that he got involved with in 1973, where there was a Bigfoot sighting along the Chestnut Ridge in western Pennsylvania, and where the craft was seen, and then several Bigfoot were seen after the craft landing. Right. And it's not unusual for, and in any cryptid situation, any cryptid investigation, for some other aspect of the paranormal sneaking its head in there. I mean, many times we've had sightings of Bigfoot, and there'd be orb activity, UFOs, and maybe other cryptids as well. And this isn't uncommon. And many times when myself or my team will get involved with a sighting, go out maybe a day or so later and actually do the investigation, we stumble upon other unexplained activity. So I believe there's a very good possibility that these are entities that can come within, can preside on our Earth plane and in another one. So I also believe they have the ability to cloak to some degree.
Yeah.
So I think there's some supernatural aspects to these things.
What about footprints leading to nowhere? I've read reports where you find a set of big footprints and they may lead out in the snow or in the mud, and they literally stop in the middle of a field and go nowhere.
Yeah, it happens a lot. When I used to be associated when J.C. Johnson was still alive, and he did his investigation for the most part at that time in the Four Corners area or in the Navajo Reservation. Those tracks lines would show up, and he'd follow it, and it would just suddenly disappear, like this thing sprout wings and took off. That became pretty common. So, but it just doesn't happen there. It happens a lot of places.
Scotty had mentioned, Scotty, you mentioned you've had an encounter with Bigfoot. And I know years ago, I had a sighting when I was a kid. We saw something. We're not sure what it was, but it wasn't something we really discussed till later in life. And we had a guest on the show who had witnessed a Bigfoot with his father, and they didn't discuss it afterwards till years later. I'm not sure what your experience was in your sighting, Lon, but do you find that maybe there's some type of telepathic communication that's going on between Bigfoot and those who may witness them?
I think they do have abilities that we don't quite understand, possibly an infrasound ability. This being that I came in contact with made some clicking sounds, like almost like an echolocation thing. I don't know if that's what it was. It could have been just a nervous tick, but I don't know exactly what it was. But no, I've heard thousands of stories over the years, encounters and sightings, and many times there's strange and unexplained activity associated with the actual sighting itself, where we just really don't know why it does what it does. But I think many times when people have come in contact with these things, it's almost like an inner voice tells them to either back off or, no need to be afraid or something to that effect.
Or disrupting your short-term memory so you don't really understand what you've seen.
Yeah,
that was my experience.
Yeah,
that's absolutely possible.
And again, interdimensional would explain the footprints appearing and then just disappearing. And
so that too, plus we have very, very minimal physical evidence for these things.
We don't have a dead body.
No.
But, I understand there's no dead body, but I also, when we've had Ken Gerhardt on the show, he said, well, how often do you find, how are you going to know scattered remains once they get scattered by an animal, whether it's human, Bigfoot, or a deer in some cases? Unless you're a biologist, you may not know these things when you come across it. So I can see both sides there. But I do, the more I read about it, the more I do see the paranormal connection. One, and I'm not sure if it was Stan's book that talked about an officer being called out to a Bigfoot sighting, seeing the actual Bigfoot and taking a shot at it. When he took a shot at it, the Bigfoot actually seemed to absorb the shot, made a bolt of lightning, and then weird noise, and then disappeared. Have you heard things like that as well?
Yeah, there have been similar types of events where a resident even take a shotgun and shoot this thing, and they would just literally, for the most part, either absorb it or just disappear.
Yeah.
That's those have been reported over time.
And then when you do see a video, a lot of times, I'd say 90% of the time, it turns out to be fake. Mm-hmm. But when you do see something, they're obviously able to pick up their dead, bury their dead, but also be elusive to any type of cameras. That's got to be it's got to be an intelligent sign.
Yeah, I mean, that's the overriding theory to some that they have some abilities to cloak when it comes to cameras and such, that they either obscure the actual sighting or kind of digitize it or pixelate it or whatever,
right.
And we do get a lot of different videos where it just really doesn't show much of anything that's definitive or something to make out what this actually was. It gives you a general idea of what you're looking at, but it's no definitive proof.
If people are saying, you know what, I can't take the whole interdimensional thing. That just freaks me out. I'm not really a believer in UFOs, and I think Bigfoot's real. One thing, I believe I read it on your blog, and I just did a TikTok video on it about a week or so ago, talked about a theory where Bigfoot could really be a feral human, where when you're seeing things in the woods, it could be a large, hairy man, large beard, long beard, covered in mud. And sometimes, especially in the Kentucky area, police have investigated these things and actually found a human that was, needed a bath and a shave and couldn't speak and possibly acted a bit ape-like. Are you in on that theory as well?
Well, I mean, you got a lot of these wild man sightings in here in the East Coast, a lot of it's in the Appalachians and down in the Smoky Mountains. You know, I've had family who were raised down in Western North Carolina, and there have been tales about the wild man there. But for the most part, they're, you know, what they're describing are these Bigfoot-like creatures. And sure, there could be feral humans, if you want to call them that. But it could be on both instances.
We're talking with Lon Strickler. He runs a blog called phantomsandmonsters.com. I encourage you to check them out on the web. Lon, real quickly, we only got a minute or two left, but any latest intriguing articles that you just posted?
Oh, it's been pretty busy. I'm getting a lot of stuff coming in, but we kind of look into a lot of different phenomena, all types of cryptids, even occasionally UFO sightings and such. And my team and I have been involved with the Chicago Mothman phenomenon now for the past really 11 years, but since 2017. And that keeps us pretty busy. So, and of course, we are looking into the upright canine dogman phenomenon, particularly here in Pennsylvania. Right. So, we're pretty busy.
Lon Strickler, phantomsandmonsters.com. We appreciate you joining us tonight on the Road Beyond podcast, and we look forward to talking to you soon. And really enjoy your blog. Thanks for putting it out there.
Thank you, Lon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks, Lon. Scotty, interesting subject. Certainly very interested in the whole dogman angle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but could dogman or dogmen, or dog people, as they may be referred to, I think that could be the origin of the whole werewolf thing.
Well, there's always the possibility.
There's always, So check them out on the web, phantomsandmonsters.com. Finally, tonight, we've been amazed not only by the pictures that we've been seeing over the last decade from the Mars rover, but also with the so-called explanations. Well, check this out. Take a look at this. A doorway into what appears to be a mountain on Mars. And Scotty even thinks we could see a head peering behind.
Look there in the top to the right.
Yeah, look in there. Zoom in on
something round there.
Yeah, you can see that.
He may be peeking out of his house.
It could very well be a doorway, but scientists are quick to say that these are naturally formed stress fractures, and they happen quite frequently. I am personally convinced we could find a Coca-Cola can on Mars, and the picture would be explained away by scientists here in NASA as a natural occurrence.
Natural occurrence.
Once again, nothing to see here, Scott.
Nothing to see here. Move on.
Move on. Folks, we appreciate you joining us on the Road Beyond podcast tonight. Scotty, you got a little vacation coming up. We won't be on the air next week, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. All right.
To the Frio River.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you for being here with us tonight, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks right here, the Road Beyond podcast.